Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
We always have tried to play a good opponent in a neutral site game for the last 8 or 9 years, and that's benefited us. I think it benefits our team in the offseason in terms of their development.
Alabama head coach Nick Saban talking about the Crimson Tide's opening game of the 2016 season against USC. Today, the start time for that game came out, and what a surprise. It's prime time. The Trojans and Crimson Tide will meet at 7 p.m. Central Time on September 3rd. Of course, when I said what a surprise, Rodney, I was being facetious. I don't think anybody really is surprised. The game will be played at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The Crimson Tide won 2 games at AT&T Stadium last year, including the opening game of the year against Wisconsin and that 38-0 blowout of Michigan State in the Cotton Bowl. And with that, we say good evening, everyone, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris, and tonight, ice cold Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry again. Love that taste. Remember to pick up some great Pepsi products the next time you're at your local grocery store. And we appreciate Buffalo Rock, longtime sponsor of this program. Well, the start time of Alabama's opening game was supposed to be the main storyline today that we were going to talk about. But unfortunately for Crimson Tide fans, you know it is not. In case you haven't heard, and you probably have to be out of the country not to have heard, Alabama starting left tackle Cam Robinson was arrested along with teammate Hootie Jones earlier this morning in Monroe, Louisiana. The two were arrested in the parking lot of a local park after a police officer smelled marijuana coming from their vehicle. The Louisiana natives are now both facing drug and gun charges, the most serious of which is a felony stolen gun charge levied specifically against Robinson. Rodney, what was your first reaction when you heard the news this morning, probably a little before 9 o'clock?
Yeah, well, I was really shocked. I think like most people, especially when you talk about Cam Robinson, who has been a model citizen here, model player over the last 2 years as he started every single game. And so I think, Gary, I would share the same sentiment that most people did at the time, was just surprise.
Now, if there is a positive in this, Rodney, it is the fact that, as far as you and I both know, there have been no conduct issues at all with either one of these players, disciplined either as a football player or a student here at the University of Alabama, and no legal issues that we know of. Not making excuses, just pointing out a fact that neither one of them have any previous history of bad conduct, either legally or something here at the university.
No, and I think when you look at Cam Robinson, certainly Hootie Jones has not played that much, but when you talk about from a football standpoint, you know, Cam Robinson's been nothing but a leader ever since his freshman year. I know that last year certainly he contributed strongly in a leadership role on the offensive line and on offense in general. And, you know, again, I just think that, Gary, when you look at this, you would have to say it's certainly something that, based on, you know, their time here, it's totally out of character.
Well, we know this. It's a legal issue. And the district attorney there in Louisiana and folks on that side are going to be putting together a case, and there are going to be defense attorneys certainly involved with Cam Robinson and Hootie Jones. So there is going to be some legal maneuvering going on. Today, we caught up with local attorney Paul Patterson to discuss how he thinks the players' attorneys should approach this situation.
What should occur is their defense attorneys should meet with these two players and hopefully reach an agreement with the district attorney's office early to do a deferred prosecution or diversion program where they can get the facts. These players can go in, they can go through whatever they need to do as far as re-education or either drug classes or something of that nature, community service, and get this matter closed for them where they can return to the university. And again, these players, to my knowledge, have not been in trouble before, so they would be perfect candidates for something of this nature.
Well, Rodney, we've already discussed the fact that until this incident, both of these players have had previously clean slates. From a football standpoint, though, because they are football players here at the University of Alabama, let's begin with Cam Robinson. If he doesn't play this upcoming season, whether it's missing one game or the entire season, we don't know what will happen. There's no way to tiptoe around it. It would be a huge loss for this football team. You're talking about your 2-year starting left offensive tackle, a guy that's projected as a potential number 10 overall first-round pick in the upcoming 2017 NFL draft. If he's not there, your offensive line looks completely different without him.
Well, I think when you look at that, Gary, in that scenario, whatever the amount of time is that he misses, you're probably starting or possibly starting an entirely different offensive line, new offensive line from what you started last season when they won the national championship. Now, again, that's at the end of spring practice. Shank Taylor at right guard certainly could reclaim that spot. But if you go based on what happened at the end of spring practice, that would give you 5 new players. Who exactly those would be? If you went based on spring practice, you'd probably be looking at Corin Curvin, who's a rising senior, and a true freshman, Jonah Williams at the tackles, Lester Cotton at left guard, Ross Piercebaker. Now, he did start last season all 15 games, but he was at left guard. He's switching to center. And then at right guard, you have either Shank Taylor or redshirt freshman Brandon Kennedy. So you're possibly looking at 5 new starters if, indeed, Cam Robinson is to miss some time.
And for the defensive secondary, Hootie Jones is just trying to earn some playing time, potentially as well on special teams. So it's not a huge loss from a football standpoint, yet he is a guy that has made progress and was probably going to get some playing time this coming season.
I think he made a lot of progress toward the end of spring practice. There you see him, number 6. He came a long way. He had a nice A-Day game, Gary, and I think that he certainly, when you're talking about depth, he brought that and also has done a good job on special teams throughout his career. So you're losing a guy who has the experience on special teams as well as a guy that's a valuable backup.
And let us say this again. We don't know what's going to happen. This is a legal issue. Decisions have to be made in Louisiana. Decisions will have to be made here in Tuscaloosa in regards to these 2 young men as students and as athletes on the football program. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But we will keep you up to date, of course, right here on WVUA 23, Tider Insider TV, and Rodney with TiderInsider.com. Well, it's not all bad news for the Crimson Tide today. The Alabama basketball team received a big-time commitment over the weekend. Former Ohio State center Daniel Giddens, a former top 50 recruit, is transferring to Alabama. Giddens will have to sit out the 2016-2017 season, but will have 3 years of eligibility remaining starting in 2007-2018. Rodney, he didn't score a lot of points or grab a lot of rebounds, about 3.5 points and 3.5 rebounds per game as a true freshman at Ohio State, but he did block nearly 2 shots a game, the leading shot blocker on the team. Defensive presence, 6'10", talented, athletic guys don't grow on trees. This looks like a big pickup for Alabama.
Well, I think you just hit it when you're talking about 6'10", athletic guys don't grow on trees. And, so that alone
they may be a tree.
Makes him very valuable, I think, Gary. He was an outstanding high school player, and I think he's got tremendous potential, upside. Once he gets in the programs developed again. I think you might have mentioned he has to sit out next season and will be eligible in 2017. But he's a guy that, as you start looking at this basketball roster and start looking forward, you can see Avery Johnson kind of piecing things together with some of the guys he's brought in. Nick King, Braxton Key, even Dazon Ingram, who was injured at the beginning of last season. Plus, you've got another guy coming in, Ormond Davis, who's an outstanding player. So you add in Giddens, and you're starting to see him kind of piece things together for his future.
Well, some people will say, well, he can't help you next season. Well, he can. He'll practice. He can work on getting himself better, but also making the other guys better that he's practicing against, much like Nick King did this past season, sitting out after transferring in from Memphis. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, the Alabama baseball team has 5 wins in its last 6 games. Is the Tide hitting its stride at the right time? Plus, the Crimson Tide softball team gears up for its 18th straight NCAA Tournament Regional. And also coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. The number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com or reach out to us on Twitter. Brandon and Katarina are waiting for your tweets using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. A week after winning a home series against Auburn, the Alabama baseball team did one better in Arkansas as the Tide swept the Hogs. Alabama's much maligned offense scored 25 runs in the 3-game series. When they score runs, they can beat anybody because pitching is always good. Alabama's now 15-12 in the SEC, 15 being the magic number. Tide still has one conference series remaining at home this weekend against South Carolina. And if Bama can get a win or 2 there, they'll be a lock for a regional. I think they already are. And tonight is Alabama's last non-conference game of the regular season. Bama hosting Sanford. No score right now in the bottom of the first. We'll have the highlights for you tonight on WVUA 23 News at 10. Well, welcome back to Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Rodney, it's been a nice stretch for the Bama baseball team. And I tell you, they're starting to hit. Georgie Salem struggled all year, starting to hit. Will Haney struggled batting average-wise. he's got a lot of power. He's beginning to be a little more consistent. 25 runs in 3 games at Arkansas, including 4 in the top of the ninth to come back and win that final game. They hit like this, they're dangerous.
25 runs in 3 games. Yeah. Again, it's been consistency, Gary. I think there's been times they've hit the ball this year. There's been some streaky times, and you say, have they turned the corner? Well, only time will tell. But certainly the pitching's there, defense is there. Now can they get consistency at the plate? And if they do, they're going. We've said it all along. They're going to be really tough to beat. But if they are peaking, it's at the right time, certainly.
They could get a sweep this weekend, and it's not out of the question at home. 18-12 looks pretty good going into that SEC tournament. Could help their seeding in the regional and give this team a really good shot of momentum. And remember, Hoover just up the road. They played all their games there last year, so they're familiar with the stadium. Let's see if this Bama team can give everybody a good finish here and give the fans something good to feel about. Something good to feel. What am I trying to say?
Something to feel good about.
Something to feel good about. Yeah, easy for me to say. Well, the Alabama softball team, fans always feel good about them. They earned the 6th seed overall in the NCAA tournament. That means Alabama's hosting a regional this week at Rhodes Stadium, and then is in line to host the Super Regional as well if they win. The players and coaches had a watch party on Sunday night in their clubhouse. The team learned it will host Samford, Cal, and Texas State in the regional, which begins on Friday. If Alabama wins, Tide is in line to host the winner of the Seattle Regional in the Super Regional. It's Alabama's 18th straight appearance in the NCAA tournament, but head coach Patrick Murphy says it still feels very special.
Well, believe me, this never gets old. We never take it for granted. I told the team the other day after the SEC tournament, for example, Ole Miss, this is the first time they've ever gotten in. First time in 20 years. And for us, it's 18 years in a row, but we're never going to take it for granted. And for me, this is the best day of the year. Better than Christmas, better than my birthday, and better than St. Patrick's Day.
He's Irish.
I like
so
that.
Threw that in.
St. Patrick's Day.
Coming up, another regional already going on in Tuscaloosa is the men's golf regional. We'll have an update from O'Colony. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls. And let me tell you something, just like last week, and you responded. You want to get in? Brandon just told me in my ear, nobody has called yet. So 205-348-9882. You call now. You're going to get through and be on television here with Rodney and myself on TITV. Or you can email us if you want to. There's the email address. Or you can ask us a question or make a comment on Twitter using the hashtag TITV. But let's get those phone lines going, because I'm interested in what some of you think of this Cam Robinson, Hootie Jones story. Give us your take. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. We'll return after this timeout. The Bama men's golf team shot 4 under during the second day of the NCAA Tuscaloosa Regional, moving the Tide from 5th place to 4th place out at O'Colony. The top 5 teams from the Tuscaloosa Regional will move on to the NCAA Championships. Alabama freshman Davis Riley shot a career-low round of 5 under par. How's that for coming up big? Helping his team move another step closer toward that goal of reaching the NCAA Championships that are going to be coming up in a couple weeks in Eugene, Oregon. Alabama is 16 strokes ahead of the 2 teams tied for 6th place. Auburn's in 5th place, 8 shots back at the Tide, so Bama looking good to advance on to the national championships. All right, Ronnie, let's go to an email that we've got that has come in here before we get to some phone calls. This is from Markeith in Utah. If Cam Robinson doesn't play this season, is he still eligible for the NFL draft? The answer is yes. And we feel like, or I feel like, I'll speak for myself, that something is going to be worked out for him to play some this season. But if he doesn't and he sits out a year, he would still be 3 years removed from high school. He would be eligible for the NFL draft.
Yeah, I'm like you. If I had to make an early guess, Gary, I think he plays. And again, we don't know if he'll be suspended at all. But if he is, I don't think it's going to be too significant.
All right, we'll just wait and see. But he would be eligible for the NFL draft next year, Markeith, under any circumstances. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Harold from Anniston first up tonight. Big H, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing well.
Hey, my question, man, is about the girls' softball. I really appreciate the job that Coach Murphy's doing, man. I think he's a great coach.
He is.
But watching these softball games, man, it's still that age-old thing, man, that we don't have as many bats as the other teams do, man.
Harold, I don't know. I mean, I think you look at Lafayette, you look at Runyon, you look at Reagan Dykes. They got some pop in their lineup. You can't have 9 sluggers. I mean, you got to have some slappers. You got to have some girls that can get on base. I know why you're saying that. You've seen some other teams that are maybe you feel like hitting more home runs, but I think Alabama's got enough power. I think listen, they're just not getting to the regional, Harold. I think this team's going to make it to the World Series. So I think they're constructed just fine.
Yeah. Harold likes that quick strike ability.
He does.
But no, I do think that they've really improved in that area. I think a few years ago, Harold really and I'm not saying that you're not right. I'm just saying that I think a few years ago, where they were and where they are now, I think they've come a ways in terms of being able to hit with power. So Gary, I think that the interesting thing is that a lot of people are picking Washington to win this regional.
Get through, you mean the Super Regional?
Yeah, Super Regional.
If Washington gets to the Regional and Alabama gets to the Regional, that'd be a good matchup. And they're good.
Yeah.
But I like Alabama's chances. All right, let's go up to Hubbardville and talk to Tim. Tim, welcome into the program.
Hey, how y'all doing tonight?
Doing well.
Hey, yeah, I just like to talk about the Cam Robinson situation.
Okay.
I think it's very unfair that when these kids, they do something wrong, it seems like the final judgment always comes down on the head coach. And the head coach is in a very bad situation. He don't want to lose his job by getting rid of one of his best players. So why do we not? Last week there was a lot of talk about having a commissioner of college football. If we did, that would be something that a commissioner of college football could handle. What do y'all think about something like that?
Well, I think at some point a commissioner for the college football, at least the Power 5 conferences, is going to happen. I think it will. Now, as far as all the heat come down on the head coach, maybe there's some other instances, Tim, that you could show me that happening, but I don't see it here. I haven't seen anybody blaming Nick Saban for this at all. Ultimately, he's one of the decision makers as far as their future on the football team, but I don't think anybody's blaming Nick Saban for what happened in Louisiana earlier this morning.
And on the flip side, I think, too, Gary, what he may be referring to is there was a lot of kind of fallback to Nick Saban on the Jonathan Taylor situation. Right. Also, the DJ Petway situation where he allowed DJ Petway to come back after he had his incident. But let me say this. We know how Jonathan Taylor worked out, but you look at what DJ Petway did. I mean, here's a guy that got a second chance. He took advantage of it. He graduated. He helped his team win a national championship, and he was actually a role model on this football team. He helped develop a lot of these young guys in terms of being that role model for them, Gary. And I think that that kind of speaks volumes for Nick Saban allowing him to come back. And there was a lot of criticism for that.
One thing about Nick Saban, he's going to do what he thinks is best, regardless of what media, fans, or anybody else thinks. Well, still to come, Tuscaloosa played host to the SEC Track and Field Outdoor Championships this past weekend, and Alabama did something it hasn't done in more than 25 years. We'll have the details. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, phone lines are open at 205-348-9882. You can email us or you can tweet at us as well. Want to hear from some more of you. It is a fast-paced show tonight. Unfortunately, some negative news, but some good news, too, on this edition of Tider Insider TV. Stick around. This past weekend at the Sam Bailey Track and Field Complex at the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide took first, second, third, and fifth in the men's discus. The clean medal sweep helped the Alabama men's track and field team finish third overall at the outdoor championships. The third place finish is Bama's highest since 1989. Meanwhile, the women finished sixth overall, their best finish since 2006. Let's head right back to the phone lines real quickly where T is with us in Birmingham. Good evening, T.
How's it going, guys?
Doing well.
Hey, I just want to get you guys' honest opinion. What is the best case scenario versus the worst case scenario for these two guys, Cam and Hootie? We definitely, as being Bama fans, we want them back on the field, but we absolutely want them to, have some type of repercussion. But what's your
Well, T, right off the bat, best case scenario for Cam Robinson is have this stolen weapons charge dismissed and pulled down to just a possession charge. I think his lawyer is going to argue he didn't know the weapon was stolen when he came into possession of it. That's best case scenario. As far as Alabama football is concerned, that's a decision that Nick Saban is going to have to make. But I think best case scenario is that the lawyers are able to negotiate with the district attorney there, get some of these charges reduced. They are sentenced to some civic duty and service in the community there, do not have to serve any jail time, and that they come back here. Nick Saban lays out some internal punishment for them, and they're back on the football team at some point in 2016. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Rodney, for me is that for whatever reason, they're not released here, and they're tied up in court, and they're not part of this football team. That's worst case scenario.
And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's closer to what you mentioned earlier. I think that this thing gets taken care of relatively quickly, and I do think the charges against Cam Robinson will be reduced.
Okay, that is what we have time for in terms of phone calls tonight. Thank you for the phone calls. Thank you for the emails as well. But when we come back, a pair of former Crimson Tide golfers encourage each other to big finishes. That included a $500,000 purse for Justin Thomas on the PGA Tour. We'll be right back with more TITV right after this. Former Bama golfers Justin Thomas and Trey Mullinax exchanged supportive text messages on Sunday, and boy, did it ever pay off. Both had strong days on the course. At the Players' Championship, Thomas started the day outside the top 20, but birdied his first 2 holes and added 4 more. Thomas would finish tied for third at 10 under par, and this was the best finish for Thomas since a top 10 at the Honda Classic in February. In addition, former Crimson Tide golfer Trey Mullinax won the Rex Hospital Open in Raleigh, North Carolina for his first Web.com Tour title. Mullinax got hot on the back 9, shooting a 30. This should open the door for him to join the PGA Tour next year. Way to go, guys. When you have the kind of program J.C. Will has, you're turning out top-tier golfers, they're going to go on to the professional tours and do well as well.
And I know we're getting ready to talk about the locker room. I like that shirt.
Well, I like it too, Rodney. You're right. Our shirts and ties tonight provided, as always, by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964 and home of the original elephant wear like Rodney and I are wearing tonight. You can shop in person in their brand new store downtown on University Boulevard, or you can shop online as well. But we would encourage you when you're in town to go by and see Alex and the staff and get hooked up with some original elephant wear. All right, Buddy's Rib and Steak tonight. We're coming to see you for dinner right after the show, and we are hungry. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Thanks for watching. See you at Buddy's. Good night.